Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Creator Interviews Kickstarter Preview. My name is Zach, and I'm joined by the creator Marc Braden. Braden, how you doing?
Good. Excellent.
Welcome. I guess, so you and I have a little bit of a history in that this is the second project that we've worked on together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was very happy with the way things went the first round. So, I mean, something seems to work. You don't don't change it.
Well, yeah. That's a good theory. Um, So let's see. What should we tell people about you right out the gate? If we're gonna, what's interesting about Mark on day one?
Uh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people seem to think I've had a interesting life. I mean, I've definitely kind of been all over the place. I originally I originally had a book deal writing poetry,
Nice.
uh, and I got scammed by
Oh,
my college. I went to University of Tennessee as a writer, and I I put all of it in a compilation, and it turned out that I didn't read the fine print that they got all the rights to it.
mm,
So that and so I that's my late teens, early 20s. I thought, oh, I could just whip out another book in no time, and just never just
never.
college life and stuff didn't pan out that way. So I graduated college. I was about to graduate. They're like, well, you need to take some teaching classes or something. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, what else are you going to do with an English degree, And I'm like, I don't know, be a writer. I mean, they're like, well, that doesn't pay anything until you,
Oh,
as many people out there know.
mm,
And yep. And so I was like, oh, I got to eat. And so I'd always worked in restaurants and stuff, and I was a pretty good cook. So I decided I'd go to culinary school and get another couple of years of school out of the way to buy some time before I had to do anything for real.
and
Unfortunately.
your English degree really helped out a lot, I'm sure, in culinary school.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Luck oh, yeah, no, I ended up being really talented at that, and, I just kept getting hired for better and better jobs and it moving up, and it was like, "Well, this is my path for now,"
Yeah.
So, I always wrote on the side, I always played some D&D and some other, games and stuff with, various groups and friends through the years. And so I always kept that kind of as a side, passion or, side thing. Um, I DJ'd in the United in the throughout the US, like right at the beginning of like the big rave scene in the early 90s. And
Uh,
used to travel from like Chicago to Michigan to Memphis to New Orleans and play a bunch of warehouses that were illegally set up and stuff. And that led to DJing at a club
that's
for like a
amazing.
good 5 or 6 years. I did that. I met tons of people. I used to, since I double majored in English and music. I play guitar too, so I um I used to set up the live side. We had a live side in the club in Memphis where we did bands and stuff. So either it was like one of the size venues where you either get the really like the up and coming bands that have had like one hit, or like people on their way down. We were kind of that midpoint. So I hung out with a lot of famous people. I mean, I got really drunk and went and found the best hamburger with Keanu Reeves once when he was with his band Dark Star when he was
Yep.
playing bass, and me and
Amazing.
him went out on the town. I got put in charge of when Public Enemy came. I got in charge of like taking them around town and like showing them everything. Um, I had a lot of friends in Memphis, so I mean, I could go pretty much wherever I wanted and stuff. I made really good friends with Trent Reznor at one point. I mean, for a while, he came after his show there one night, and me and him ended up hanging out the whole night. And then I ended up in New Orleans a few weeks later and got in touch with him, and then we hung out there, and then he invited me to when him and Bowie were playing backstage in Texas. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was interesting time. I mean, it was fun. So
How did a DJ slash chef slash writer, which is an amazing combination. How did that attended University of Tennessee and was around Memphis. How did you transition to a globe trotter?
uh I mean, I always like to travel. So I mean, one thing that appealed to me about being a chef was the fact that you could go pretty much anywhere and find work.
Yeah.
My original plan was to buy a crappy RV when I graduated culinary school and just drive around the United States and like cook at different restaurants for 6 months,
Uh-huh.
and then travel to another city. But I actually got a job that paid me to travel.
Nice.
So I took that and did that for a few years. And I was doing like PGA events and NASCAR events, and like I did a Super Bowl. I did
Jeez.
basketball, NBA basketball playoffs. I've done hockey playoffs. I've done most of the major college bowls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with that company, I traveled for about 2 years doing that. So I was in a different city literally every week. Like we would fly on Monday, work Tuesday through Sunday, fly on Monday, and then you just did that constantly. And so I saw a lot of the United States that
Mm-hmm.
way, and so that got my travel bug out. But then before that, I'd been to Europe a couple of times, and then uh, right before COVID happened, I mean, I had the opportunity to kind of go ahead and move over here to Europe
Mm-hmm.
permanently, and so we did that. So we moved to the Ukraine, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I taught. I ended up hooking up with some like a religious group, like the churches and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was teaching orphans how to cook.
I see. That's cool.
And so I did that for quite a while, and then we ended up buying a little farm. And I don't know. At that point, we were discussing different possibilities of what we were going to do, and then that's when the war started. And so now we're in Romania.
Wow. Jeez. That's
Yeah, it'll be actually, what's the date? It's almost exactly 1 year ago. I think. I think
wow.
tomorrow is
Oh
one
my
year.
gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
So 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 all this cyclone of events and then you settle in like you've been traveling for years and all that and then you settle into Ukraine and pretty much immediately have to uproot and bounce again over to another
yeah. But
yeah,
2 years in,
2
yeah,
years in.
yeah.
So in the middle of all that, you weren't busy enough. And so you decided let's also make some RPGs.
Yeah, that came around. Well, I started. Actually, you'd be mad. I was in Lviv in Ukraine,
Mhm.
and I had an awesome game shop right down the street from where I lived. I was just like walking by one day, and I'm like, "Is that travel?" It was think it was Catan that I saw in the window, and I was
Mm,
like, in some anime stuff, and now they're big on like the manga and stuff
mhm.
here. Like every bookstore's got just a huge. They still
Huh.
have bookstores, first of all.
Hmm. What are those?
Amazon
Yeah.
hasn't. Yeah, Amazon hasn't put them out of business yet. So they so I thought it was that kind of thing at first, and then I went in and it was all role playing games, and they had miniatures, they had all of it in English and
Mm,
stuff. And so I started talking to the people, and they were like, "Well, we're not allowing in person games yet, right now,
mhm,
but we've got an online community." And I was like, "Oh," so they gave me the Telegram account and stuff, and so I joined, and then I ended up putting together. I had already started considering the idea of putting together a Ukrainian book of folklore, because I realized I found this series of children's books, but they're not quite children's books. I mean, they're like, you know, thick. I
They're
mean, they're
thick,
like
yeah.
little like Bible sized books, but they all have these beautiful like illustrations in them, and it's like every like fantasy creature from all of their folklore. And
Mhm.
I started looking through, and I thought I had a pretty good knowledge of,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff as it was. But then I started realizing that when you get over here, each country has like,
Mm.
their own real versions of a vampire, of a werewolf, there of a, of these things. And then all these other creatures that just and stuff that just do not get used and stuff. And especially with Ukrainian folklore, I started really studying it and stuff. And then my wife would read most of this to me like at bedtime. We would have like story time, and she
Mm.
would read the books to me and stuff because they're all in Ukrainian,
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, man, this is make an awesome game, and like their like creation myth is just amazing when you really get into it. It's like they weren't even from Earth; they're
Mm.
from another planet, and then they had to leave, and then they got put here. And then they came from, there used to be forests up where Antarctica used to be or whatever. And then they made their way to the Ukrainian area.
Mm.
And so I was like, so there was all, and then in their stories, there was all these like, even, I mean, you're talking about pre-Christian stories,
Mhm.
and stuff, mythology. And there's mention of like the heroes flying to other planets to get a weapon or a
Mm.
magic spell or something to defeat the evil,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, why is none of this ever I've never, like I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
I've never seen any of this, So I started writing a campaign I started a group, and we started playing old school essentials as the base because I thought it was the easiest one to kind of, they all played like fifth edition, but I kind of wanted to do something different. So
Mhm.
I got them to play old school essentials. And so and then I've met this young lady that was a really good artist and stuff from there. And so I ended up releasing the first three of my series, my Domain of Miru series, which is basically based off all of those myths and monsters and stuff like that. And I did all those through Old School Essentials, and I hate it because I've got the fourth book, all the art for it. I think I mentioned to you the
Uh-huh.
other day, and I realized all my notes and all of my stuff is in Ukraine in my house
Oh,
there. And so right now that's on pause because I don't want to disrespect
yeah.
the lore and and all this. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours of study time.
Mhm.
So anyway, that led to then playing with them. They were like, could you make an even simpler? Like they wanted, like there was a couple of people in the group that were, like, oh, it'd be great if we could do this with this, and if we could do that. And it all had to do with like spells and stuff like that. And I'd been tinkering with a system for a while, a magic system to replace the one in 5e and with and stuff in old school essentials to a little bit more freeform version.
Mhm.
And so then that's sort of when I decided, well, why not just make all the mechanics,
Right.
you know, fit together? And so I put them together. We play tested it actually with which I don't even think you've seen yet. Honestly, the first version of it was a space setting.
Aha.
And so I play tested it with that, and then put that together. And I was like, okay. Then I decided, well, it'd be easier to just do the rule book itself, and then I could grow it, and then hopefully other people would like the rules. And it's completely Creative Commons. Anybody can
Mhm.
make whatever they want with it. So I'm hoping at some point people will you know create their own settings, create do their own hacks of it and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So we did a project. You did a project last year where we did the core book, which is called MisAdventure Games, and that's the like genre neutral uh, rule guide, and then along with that, you had ready the fantasy compendium, right, which is kind of all the extra rules or little tidbits and a setting and all that for people who want to play a fantasy like sword and sorcery sort of a game. And then this new Kickstarter is another genre follow up, right? So same core rule book, but now you have the horror compendium available. And again, it has more character options that are horror themed and more rules and monsters and everything that are all to kind of, here's all the extra tidbits that make this game work as a horror as a horror session.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Um, so you've been working on this. Am I right in also thinking that you've done some work for, is it Adventure a Week and a few things, just some
I
additional
did.
writing work on?
I worked for, yeah, I did do some of their mini adventures for a while. I did I think 6 of those for them, and then I did I used to work I did a few adventures that aren't available anymore for an old company called D3 Adventures.
Hmm.
A few years ago, they were the first ones to give me a break
Yeah.
and stuff, and I did a few adventures for them. Um, and then I did a whole bunch of stuff for this other company that's supposed to be releasing it. I got an update from them the other day saying that they were putting it all together and laying it out and stuff. So
Cool.
it's been in the works for a while.
Nice.
Um, I've done a little bit of ghost writing for some people that you sign
Yeah.
contracts for stuff, and
Yep.
you don't get to take credit for, but
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that kind of thing. And then I mean, so I've done quite a bit of that, of little other stuff, things like that, just to help build, get back into it. Once I decided I wanted to start writing again,
Yeah.
um, thought it was a good place to start. You know,
Absolutely. You 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 touched on this, but MisAdventure Games, it's a it's a 2d6 system, very rules light, very much kind of allows room for role play and spur of the moment inspiration and things like that at the table. What other things do you really feel like come through as unique features or cool features for the MisAdventure system?
with your points, you really only have enough points at to build a character, and then then you have what's called the foci, and
Hmm.
so the foci are kind of like your special abilities,
Mm,
but you can only use them a limited amount of times, and they really are meant to, in a 2d6 system with the spread,
hmm.
a +1 can be huge,
Yeah.
like +1 or +2 can be a huge boon, and it really makes it a little bit more cinematic, because like if you're a fighter, let's going back to say like the mighty,
Hmm.
and you pick this, one of the usually in the book we recommend that each person, the max with points you can only have 3 foci
Hmm.
at max in it anyway, and they're cheapest when you start your character.
Hmm.
So if you start your character at first level, with build, it's best to spend 6 points and get all 3 of those at the beginning. But you can only use them once per like 24 hours on what level that foci is, and it can only go up to 3. So
Uh-huh.
at max, you would ever only be able to use something
Oh,
3
that's cool.
times.
Yeah, yeah,
So what I like about them though is that bonus really does, in gameplay especially, really does, kind of like what exploding dice would do. It gives you a moment that big moment, like the mighty is, the party is down, and and then there's your warrior. He's got one last breath in him, and he's like, I'm going to use my main attack, and
yeah. Hmm.
he rolls it, and he gets that bonus, and then and then it ends up being a critical hit, and then and then next thing you know, he's killed the bad guy, in a magical moment for the party, and
Right.
he saved everybody. The magic is the same way. Like there is no spell list.
So what I love about this, and just kind of like tying it back, bringing it back around, like one of the things that I really like about this is obviously the system is designed for people who want to have those cool moments, right? Every piece of the system is designed for allowing characters to, you know, it's very simple and it allows surprise and surprising moments, exciting moments on both the player side and the DM side by not getting into the weeds, except where getting into the weeds allows you to surprise people, right? Um, and I think that's very cool. And I think people who check this out, who look at the system, will find that um, it feels very OSR. It feels very rules light, traditional retro gaming sort of a thing. But it's doing just enough things different to where I think you're going to find some meaty things to latch on to um, that their specific style, Mark's specific style of meatiness and detail may be exactly what your game table is looking for, just like his. Um, I think that there's this is not just a oh here's a quick little like hack of the 5e rules or the here's a quick hack of the AD&D rules that has a couple little tweaks to it. Um, there it's got unique ideas and it's doing some really cool things with them. Um, I really like that. I don't know. Maybe everybody can look and see what they think about it for themselves. But for me, I really enjoy seeing seeing your mind at work, Mark, in the rules and mechanics and what you choose to focus on. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm hoping, yeah, some of the upcoming stuff will be a little bit different. You know, I think now that we've got some of the basics out of the way, I
hmm
mean, I've strayed away from world building or settings and stuff, but they've got some weirdness coming up, you know, after this that
Yeah,
uh, should be good. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, we should probably call it for this time, folks. Go back, MisAdventure Games, the horror compendium. You can also pick up the core book and the fantasy book while you're at it over on Kickstarter. Mark, you've already funded, so you're making the books. It's just a matter of people getting on board at a good price and getting them first out the gate. These are also, I'll go ahead and tell people, it's Zine Quest. They definitely feel like a zine, but these are A4 sized, so they're massive zines and you got ahead of yourself, so to speak. And uh, this horror compendium is it's like 72 pages, so it's oversized in every stretch of the word. So definitely worth checking out, and I think definitely worth the investment. Mark, thanks for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it as well.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, folks, and I guess we'll see you next time.